Always being satisfied. Hi guys, this is Ian McMinn, and this is Path to I Am. Today we'll be talking about always being satisfied. So this is another interesting approach to the concepts I talk about here on this channel. So in order to really create a lot of internal momentum in our lives, there's a few different approaches, but the one that the kind of the philosophy that I have is inside out, the inside out approach, starting and ending with the mind and our internal state and experience and going from there. And so this idea of satisfaction, in other videos I talked about fulfillment, same idea, different term. When I talk about satisfaction, it's actually a state that we can train ourselves to live in. And so it's not uncommon, I think, for an ideal way of starting to implement this and reining in the mind and beginning to have some inner peace is picking up a practice like meditation or something similar that can put kind of a stop to all of the different negative momentums that we can have in our lives. But essentially, it's not required. It's just, it may be useful for some. But from there, we can get into a state where everything feels like all of the needs we have feel like they're being met. And we can start living from this state of always being satisfied. And so the reason why I like to bring up meditation is a common issue I see with people is if they pick up some positive psychology or start studying similar channels to mine, for example, is they will get into what's called toxic positivity, where they're not actually being honest and acknowledging what they're feeling. And they're putting a smiley face sticker over the actual state. So that's not what we're talking about at all. It requires a genuine acknowledgement of where I am and doing what's necessary to reset myself. So that's why meditation can be so useful. Whether that's still meditation, walking meditation, exercise, some people resonate more with that. But getting, I find for me, stillness and silence helps the most. A more informal sort of meditation. I don't have a formal meditation practice right now. I did for many years. But whenever I start to get into a negative state, I notice that and I slow everything down. In past videos, I talk about Psalm 46:10, right? Be still and know that I am. But long story short, just getting to slow down and notice and acknowledge what I'm feeling. And then in my own way, everyone is different, returning to the state of satisfaction. So it is actually possible to always be satisfied. It is. But it requires acknowledging what you're genuinely feeling and having your own process for getting back to baseline and resetting to where satisfaction, thirdly, is accessible. And then I get to move through my life this way. And so if I'm already coming from that, and let's say I get a stressful stimulus in my environment, maybe the boss I don't like yells at me or something, I already have that momentum. And so when I catch the negativity, the negative thoughts and feelings come up in me, I can choose to remain in satisfaction if I wish. So that's why meditation is so useful by so many, is you're getting to practice this in a environment where you don't have these negative stimuli. You're just with yourself. So if you can start establishing that positive baseline, you can get into any situation. You can get into a bad car wreck, even. Not wishing that on anyone, but you could get into a tense situation where you can still choose to remain in it. And so by always being satisfied, I can be coming from an even keel. And as I talk about in other videos with the I am idea, when I'm coming from always being satisfied, I'm coming from my ideal self. Who I really am gets to shine through. And genuine inspiration, genuine creativity, these things come as a natural byproduct. So yet again, I need to be willing to acknowledge all emotions that I have, including negative ones, especially negative ones, because those are the ones that we try to repress and ignore. Genuinely acknowledging them and feeling them. Going through our process to get back to baseline. For me, I like to slow down as much as possible, ideally sit still, but obviously if we're in the middle of a task, mentally slowing down and getting back to baseline. And then thirdly, we can return to that satisfaction. And the more you live from a certain state, the more momentum you have. So paradoxically, it's actually the hardest to start. And then over time, like for me, I've been doing a lot of this stuff for a long time. There's new levels all the time. Like I woke up this morning and I had a really big breakthrough where I realized that I have a lot of these internal reactions that I haven't been aware of that are negative, that I can, show positivity, I can acknowledge, I can feel, and I can remain in satisfaction through it. Right? So I've been doing this for a long time and there's always new layers, but for someone that's just starting out, it's actually the hardest then because there's all this negative momentum already. So just know if this stuff doesn't make sense, well, good job. I mean, it means you're introducing something new, right? So if you can acknowledge and feel negative emotions and thoughts, you can start doing whatever process you find works for getting back to baseline. And then 3, finally being back in satisfaction. You can start living from that. And more, you're just experiencing that. Right? You experience everything is achieved and you're getting to take action from that place of satisfaction whenever you feel inspired to do something rather than out of fear. So you're going to be a lot more flexible. You're going to be a lot more malleable. And as I say, you can test this in your life, but what I have found is things just kind of work themselves out in external conditions. The more we come from satisfaction or from the I am and the kingdom and fulfillment, however we want to think of it. This is just a new way of me putting it today. External conditions often work themselves out, but the irony is we don't need them to necessarily because, well, we're always satisfied. So there seems to be this interesting changes in the external environment. Reality kind of being more accommodating as we're more accommodating to ourselves. But yet again, we don't need the thing I often stress, we don't even need to worry about that. We don't need to worry about external conditions. We can keep doing what we need to do in our lives every day and more come from always being satisfied, always being fulfilled and living from that place. When we do, things just seem to work out. We show up in a better way. And let's face it, always being satisfied is pretty great. And it's possible. And there are more people that are doing that already, that are waking up to that and are implementing it. And it really is, and it requires honesty, right? It requires being honest about what we feel, not BSing ourselves. If we feel bad, it's good to acknowledge we feel bad because we can't just ignore those things. When we ignore them, we neglect them and we're rejecting part of ourselves. So it requires honesty, acknowledging, feeling those emotions, being open to them, loving them, and then doing our process to return finally back in satisfaction, right? So anyway, guys, this is always being satisfied. I'm Ian McMinn. This is Path to I Am. I have links in my description for my website, for reaching out to me there, for different coaching sessions, 30 minutes and 60 minutes, donation links, and links to my podcast as well, the I Am podcast. So I hope you enjoyed it today, guys. And yeah, this is always being satisfied. I hope you enjoyed it.